Good afternoon, everyone. I want to say welcome to another MassMedic virtual event. We are incredibly excited to have you here, and I know you're really going to get a lot out of our webinar with Delve today. I see a lot of familiar faces on the join list, but a lot of people I actually don't know as well. So if you are just joining us for the first time, my name is Rachel Robinson. I'm the Vice President of MassMedic, and we are incredibly thrilled to have you joining in this event. Before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. Everyone will be on mute for this, but we encourage you to ask questions, and Taylor and Shannon at Delve will walk you through that process. They want this to be a very interactive and fun session, and I know you're going to learn a lot. So just a little bit about Delve. I know the girls will tell you more, but Delve is a wonderful product development firm that I've been privileged to know for the past few years. They have a very special spot in my heart as I've worked with them in the past, and are an excellent MassMedic member. So it is my pleasure to introduce you to Taylor and Shannon, who are going to take things over from here.
Great. Thanks, Rachel.
All right, hi everybody, welcome. I'm Shannon Ingalls and I work as a service designer at Dell.
And I'm Taylor Nowak. I'm a design researcher. Shannon and I are both on the insights and strategy team at Delve. So we conduct a lot of generative research in our department using human-centered practices, which means that we try to develop a better, deeper understanding of users as people, the context that they're in, to uncover opportunities and to design solutions. So, like I mentioned, we work at Delve, and Delve is a strategic innovation firm with offices in Boston, San Francisco, and we're headquartered in Madison, Wisconsin. We have expertise in strategy, design, and engineering, design insights, design strategy, business design, as well as industrial interaction, service design, visual communication, and then mechanical, electrical, software, and human factors engineering and prototyping. So our approach to design is very multidisciplinary. So today we're here to talk about a tool that we at Delve often use to help us move from research and insights to design, and that's a how might we question. And it's phrased as a question because it's intended to be answered by ideas and solutions. So it's a way to apply the insights and make them actionable. So the point is sometimes referred to as a black box or magic because it's one of the hardest parts to do and to teach to make that transition. But we found that this question really opens people's minds. So in this way, how might we questions are more of a thinking tool than they are a deliverable of any kind. So what you're seeing here is a design double diamond. And if you have seen a design thinking process, you're probably familiar with this. It starts with diverging to identify the problem space, which is the left diamond, and then moving into the solution space, which is the right diamond, converging. So it's, we know that it's a natural tendency for us to want to move to the solution space right away, right? It's exciting, we want to get to the ideas, but in doing so, we often miss the bigger picture and whether the solution is meeting the needs of the people we're designing it for. So the how might we question can aid in this transition. And it's at this point where these diamonds intersect that can be that bridge from findings to ideation. And the goal is to ask a question that allows the team to focus on addressing the problem through many novel and different ideas. So looking at the problem from different angles. And the best thing about this tool, in my opinion, is that it's not, you don't have to be a designer to use this tool, right? And that can sometimes be a mental roadblock for people. It's a little bit intimidating to think about. But while designers use it, it can really be used by anybody. And we're here to show you how to do that. So now that we've introduced the how might we question, let's take a quick poll to really better understand everyone's familiarity with this tool. If you've heard of it, if you've used it in the past, we want to hear about that. So I'm going to launch this, and what you should see is a poll. So we'll give you a few seconds to answer this question. Right, great. All right, we're still getting a couple responses. I will go ahead and close this and share it so we can see. So many of you haven't heard of this tool, which is great because we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how to use it. You know, some of you have used it before. Hopefully, we have some more ways to think about this that you can bring forward and continue to use the tool. So I'll hide that so Shannon can go back to presenting. Here we go. So on the next slide, Shannon, if you want to go there. So we often use this framework at Delve to explain the process in much the same way the double diamond does. So we move from observations to patterns to potential directions, and that's where the how might we questions live, to solutions. So I'm going to give you an example using real data to illustrate this. So a humane association is trying to figure out how to increase the rate of cat adoption. So they look at their data and they notice that the rate of cat adoption for three-legged cats is 2 weeks, while the rate of adoption for four-legged cats is 6 weeks. So if the Humane Association would have solely focused on those data points, they may have come to a pretty gruesome conclusion, right? Fortunately, nobody acted on this. Cats are fine. But we know there's more to it than that, you know, and they would have missed the patterns. You know, three-legged cats elicit more empathy, for example. But that's the point, you know, and this sounds kind of shocking. This example is pretty extreme, right? But we use it because it helps us illustrate, you know, why are we so willing to jump to conclusions in other contexts, you know, kind of using this as, so the point is that we use how might we questions as a tool to avoid making three-legged cats. Okay. So when how might we is developed correctly for a brainstorming session, it will allow the group, like I mentioned, to come up with many potential solutions as well as different kinds of solutions. So let's say a local shop is rethinking a signature ice cream cone. So they may test a new cone, they may test a milkshake or a sundae, or they may realize that they don't need a new signature cone at all. You know, what they need is to promote their cone and get kids excited about it. So the how might we is a tool to kind of help you reel in those ideas. Okay, so here's a quick example. So we leveraged research on people's experience in the current pandemic, which is on a lot of people's minds right now. We identified pain and gain points, created themes or clusters of critical needs, and then used how might we's to synthesize and reframe. And there are many times when, you know, there are times when this tool is not appropriate, you know. So if you already have a solution in mind, if you're not willing to let an idea succeed or fail, and if you're not looking to diverge with solutions, so if you're really squarely in that solution space and converging, this may not be an appropriate tool. You know, if the challenge is more about making incremental changes to an existing product, this wouldn't necessarily be the tool because you're already in that solution space. So that being said, there are many times when this is the right tool. You know, so how do you know that you're successful in using this tool? You know, there are a couple ways to evaluate that. So number one, the teams come to a consensus on what the problem is. You know, and that's a big one. The team is thinking about the problem and not a single solution. And the team is coming up with refreshing ideas and inspiring others to think differently. So this can be done in about 3 parts with 3 collaborative sessions. The first of those is the framing. So creating the how might we, using all the information that you gathered. Ideating, brainstorming with key stakeholders, and then the third one is prioritizing. So selecting the ideas that will move forward into testing, and then building a prioritized roadmap. So now what I'd like to do is pose to the group who within your organization might use this tool, kind of thinking about the things that this overview of a how might we question. I will go ahead and launch this one. And we know this is forced choice, so whatever one you think is most appropriate or most relevant, if you can go ahead and think about that question. And we're about to get into the details, so this is just helpful to keep in mind, you know, who might be using this in your organization. Right. Give us a few more seconds. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and close that and share it. So it looks like, you know, a lot of you would use this yourselves, which is great. We're going to really get into the details and show you how to do that. My team would use it. That's also great. Other team members in the organization. And I'm still wondering, which is that's very fair. You know, we're just getting into this, so hopefully we'll answer some of that wondering. And if you have any questions as we go through this, please feel free to put that in the chat. We're happy to answer that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Shannon.
Perfect. Thanks, Taylor. So now we're going to jump into the details, and specifically, we're going to have an example to show how to make a how might we that can make a successful brainstorming session. So to start off, let's imagine a world where you are a healthcare system striving to transition from a fee-for-service to a value-based care financial model. And in the process of doing that, you're also tending to the social determinants of health needs within your community. However, your hospital and outpatient processes and operations have shifted due to being heavily affected by COVID-19. And now you wonder, how do you still care for your patient's social determinants of health, maintain the shift to value-based care, and now address this new complex concern? So let's say you were in this position, or maybe think of a time when your company has had issues like this. These problems are multifaceted, complex, and require out-of-the-box thinking to solve. Everyone typically has some sort of data to work with. You probably have a brief or an SOW or a project one-pager, however your company likes to phrase that, but it's essentially outlining what your effort is going to do. Then normally you have some sort of research, qualitative data and reports. And then finally, you'll probably have some quantitative data and reports to kind of give you a little bit of the bigger picture. So when scanning these documents, you're looking for 4 different things. And these documents come within the first diamond of the double diamond that we spoke about earlier. So now we're really converging, we're heading towards analyzing and narrowing this data to create our how might we. The 4 things are the goal of the project. And so we have an example up here based on the Imagine a World that we provided earlier. And usually this is pulled from the SOW or the one-pager. It is what you're looking to create at the end of the project. It could be a product, a system, a service, or something along those lines. It's the offering. Next is the target user. And normally there's only one target user per how might we. It allows the brainstormers to really address the pains, needs, and gains of this group. You are looking to group people based on their behaviors and not necessarily demographic information. So we are going to use patients with COVID-19 as a general example for now, and we can refine it later. The third component that you will need is the current state problem. This is the issue or opportunity area at hand. Normally it is from a neutral perspective or where the consumer slash user and the business all have common interest in improving or changing an area. And the final component is key design criteria. These are critical factors that must be addressed within the solutions generated. If these things are not folded into the selected solution, the project generally won't do as well. Something that might help is asking yourself, what does it mean to win, and how will that materialize within this effort? So next, we're going to jump into it. So we have some examples here from our previous slide, but we're going to give everyone a couple of minutes to see if there's a problem within your organization that you could use to play along as we create a How Might We. We're gonna have you, if you would like to, reflect on recent meetings that you've participated in, presentations you have attended, industry reports you've read, or any other sort of reference that is top of mind. And then you can use this to create a How Might We out of what is top of mind for you right now. And you can use our prompt here. So we're going to start with scan all of those different items and think about what the goal of the project is, what the target user is, what the current state problem is, and what are the key design criteria within this space. We will leave our example up here so you can reference it as you think about drafting these items. And if you feel comfortable, please post what you come up with in the chat. We're going to give you about 2 minutes, and if you get stuck, feel free to message us and we'll try to respond to as many people as we can. And I'm going to go ahead and set my timer, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning.
As you're drafting these How Might We is, it's so easy to, to really think about the words and to start to kind of wordsmith. But if you just get out kind of the basic idea, that's what we're looking for at this point. It does not have to be perfect in any way.
All right, that was about 2 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next section. Hopefully everybody was able to collect some data or at least make a version of their own. So now, after we go through these documents, we've picked out all of our information. We have kind of buckets at this point, right? So now that you've extracted these, we're going to draft a focus statement. And the focus statement is a way for the person or team creating the How Might We to make sure that they can stay on track even as they go through the rest of the How Might We creation process. So when digging into editing a How Might We, sometimes the team can wander down paths that change the purpose or objective of the original How Might We. And this focus sentence will help be a guiding star when editing to make sure you don't venture too far off of the target. So next, we want to give everybody some time to draft a focus statement. We're going to give about 2 minutes again. Remember, this focus statement is just basically describing the objective of the How Might We. What are you really trying to ask your brainstorming group in the session? And this can be long, maybe even a little unruly. It could be a run-on sentence or a short paragraph. It does not have to be fully refined, just as long as it can keep you and the team on track when creating your How Might We. And remember, feel free to message us if you get stuck. And we will also send out a couple more tips. All right, great. So hopefully everybody has had a chance to draft a quick focus statement for their area of interest. So now that we have all of our components for building a how might we, we've also added in our focus sentence or our focus statement, can be a run-on. The information should be pulled from the goal of the project, the target user, the current state problem, and the key design criteria. So now we're ready to start drafting a how might we. Your first draft should be more than combining these components. You should really be able to go through and create a statement or a question. So the question might be on the longer side, but that's okay. We can refine it later. And remember, all how might we start with the opening portion, how might we do something? So next, we're going to give everybody a couple of minutes to draft their how might we based on the information that we've collected so far. Remember, this doesn't have to be perfect. This is just a first take.
If anybody has any other questions about this or they're getting stuck, feel free to put that in the question or the chat. We're happy to talk through that.
Absolutely. And I'm tossing a couple of tips into the chat window, but I'll read them out as well. So if you are stuck, feel free to draft a short, simple how might we. It doesn't have to include all of those items at first. But then once you've built something that you're comfortable with, feel free to layer in some more information to make it more defined. All right. So it's been a couple of minutes. So then let's go ahead and move on to the next portion. So hopefully you've come up with something that is a great draft. We've come up with a draft here as well. So we have how might we help patients with COVID have safe social interactions to improve their healthcare outcomes and support the value-based care financial model. So these are, hopefully you have something, you came up with it right off the top of your head. And in order to make your how might we brainstorm ready, there are a couple of different ways to refine. So the first one is splitting your how might we. Sometimes we try to cram too much into one question. And this is a sign that we need to divide and maybe have a couple different how might we's to really have a successful brainstorm. Sometimes your how might we doesn't have enough focus for the brainstorm group and could benefit from asking, more refined instead of one higher level one. The next one is altering, and this comes from Stanford. They have several prompts that help How Might We creators alter the perspective of the How Might We, such as, take your How Might We and amp up the good in it, or maybe remove the bad, or explore the opposite of what you had originally asked. The next is refining, and this all How Might We's normally go through at least refining. This is doing a little wordsmithing, make sure your question really resonates with your audience. A good reference point is to keep in mind the word choices and language that your company or user uses when you are doing research. So feel free to reference your research, make sure you're using that same language. And then the last is testing. So if you're unsure, make sure to run it by a colleague to gain insight into what could be improved. This could be a colleague that is in the project, but oftentimes it's helpful to ask people outside of the project because that might be who you're brainstorming with anyway. So next, we're going to give you a couple of minutes to try to refine your How Might We using any one of these methods. If you've logged on with somebody today, it would be great to test, but otherwise feel free to use the splitting, altering, or refining method.
Hopefully some will be able to share or to put it in the chat when they're done.
Okay, and we know this was super fast, but we wanted to also ask, but we hope that this gives you a little bit of an overview of what creating a How Might We is like and what can go into it. So next we wanted to do a quick poll just to see, how did you think it was difficult? Was it super easy? So feel free to check the box that is most relevant. All right, it looks like we're getting some answers in.
Great.
We'll give it a couple more seconds. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it and share the results. And it looks like most people feel comfortable doing it again, but would need some reference materials. And that's totally fine. Doing these, when I first started doing these, it was really difficult. It took me a while to really refine and feel comfortable getting to the point where I could say this is a good How Might We, and this is one that maybe needs some more improvement. And we'll also put some reference materials in the PowerPoint when we do share it later, just in case you need to reference it back or in case you want to research How Might We's further.
Yeah, and then for those of you who answered, you found this pretty difficult to do, if you would feel comfortable putting that in the questions or in the chat, like what was it about that made it feel difficult?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Taylor. We would love to hear what makes it challenging. These are not necessarily easy questions to ask, especially when you're first starting out. And there is more than one way to achieve the final destination of a How Might We, right? Like we've laid out one way of doing it today, but there's definitely more than one way to frame an opportunity in order to really solve the problem. All right. So then we also wanted to extend a little bit past the How Might We and talk about, what would we do after creating a How Might We is gathering the information used to build it and curating it on a board for the brainstorming session. This board could include things like secondary data, part of an analysis, quotes from primary research, any data that you have, maybe some percentages. And when making the boards for the brainstorming session, you may have more than one, as you probably have been creating more than one how might we. So this process can happen multiple times, and you will learn as you go through it where there is passion in the brainstorming group and what doesn't matter to the brainstormers. The ideas that come out of this are likely to be pretty great, and they can be taken into the design prototyping process, maybe lean startup, or another process you have for making your solutions actionable. Remember, this tool is supposed to introduce a safe way of throwing out ideas that are easy, quick wins. Mastering this device can come with time and experience. You won't necessarily get it right off the bat, but as you do it more often, obviously, you'll get better at it. This is supposed to be fun, generative, and get the juices flowing within the brainstorming group, and not necessarily making everything perfect, right? The goal is to get everybody on the same page. So at a minimum, you should include your research, you should have fun, and the team should all be aligned on what you're trying to achieve with your solutions. If you can achieve that, you've built a foundational level how might we that the team can brainstorm off of. So feel free to try this version that we've reviewed today, experiment with your own team and your group, or maybe by yourself, and see how it works for you and your team and what you could change to make this tool work better for you. There are many different ways to write how might we's. There are many different ways to frame problems. So just to revisit from earlier, when a how might we is created correctly for a brainstorm group, it will result in a couple of different things. It won't just get you a single solution, but it will result in many potential solutions. It will also get you many different kinds of solutions. So for example, if you were rethinking a signature ice cream cone for a local shop, the result would not just be a new ice cream cone, but it could also lead to creating a milkshake, ice cream sundaes, ice cream in a cup, or maybe even a mini ice cream cake. So you can see it starts to break out of the ice cream mold. And the goal of the how might we is to be divergent and different in your brainstorming sessions while maintaining the key components that will make your solution successful. So next we wanted to ask you, and really make this a little bit more interactive, we wanted to ask you, are there ways that you would consider using this in your organization? And we'd love it if you could type these answers up within the chat, and we'll read a couple of them off. While everybody is typing, there are a couple of ways that we think that this can be used within an organization. This could be used to ideate on how to change or maybe refresh your products. It can be used to expand your thinking about your company strategy and how it could look different in the future. And it could also be used to rethink your experiences or services that you provide your customers.
Right.
And it looks like we don't have any, so we'll go ahead and move on to, we have a
But we
Q&A.
do have one, Shannon. We do have one. Mike was brave enough to share, which is great. I think it would be great to look at processes and how we interact and interface with internal customers and groups. And Rachel asked, a question related to that about, have we ever heard of anybody using this when redesigning an internal org structure?
Right.
So the answer.
Oh, go ahead, Taylor.
No, go ahead, Shannon.
I was going to say to Rachel's question, I have never seen that done, but I don't see why you couldn't use it to redesign an internal org structure. It would probably be a good way to really think about who is, best fit to achieve a certain task within the different groups of your organization.
Right. And we also had another one from Carmela. You know, I could see this being used when needing to pivot your program. That's, you know, that's a great way to apply this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Shannon, if you have other comments for Carmela.
No, I think that's a great way to use it. That's a real strong suit of this tool, is to, you know, stop what you've been doing and start, you know, considering some different ways of achieving your goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we always talk about, you know, challenging your assumptions, right? So even if you've been doing things a certain way, and you're just trying to refresh, or you're really trying to pivot and, you know, maybe look to adjacent portfolio opportunities or something like that, this is a great way to take a step back and kind of really analyze the entire landscape and then pivot and use it to pivot in that way. So it's a great idea.
Absolutely. And it looks like a couple of people have raised their hand. Let me see if I can unmute somebody. It looks like Gary has raised his hand, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, Gary. Feel free to ask your question.
Maybe it was an accidental hand raise.
Yep, maybe it was an accidental hand raise. We will go to somebody else. All right, it looks like one other person has their hand raised. Feel free to go ahead and ask your question. Maybe that was an accident too. Feel free, if anybody has any questions, to post them in the chat. We're more than happy to stick around and answer some additional questions. But just to wrap up, in case anybody has to go, we wanted to talk about how might we's can be used within an organization, and, you know, really some actionable next steps that you can take to utilize this tool. So creating a how might we and using it and getting using a how might we, it can be done in 3 collaborative sessions. So the first one being framing, and this is where you're really working with the research team to create the how might we's. The second is ideating. This is where you're working with the brainstorming group and key stakeholders to produce as many solutions as you can that are different from what you've done before. And number 3 is prioritizing. And this is where, out of all of those solutions that you've created with the brainstorming and the key stakeholders, you are going to be selecting the solutions to move forward into testing and build a prioritized roadmap. And testing can look, as we mentioned earlier, testing can look different. It can be the design prototyping process, it can be lean startup, maybe you have an internal process that you use. And then there are 3 ways that you know you were successful when using a how might we. So the first is people are thinking about the problem and not a single solution. 2 is people are coming up with refreshing ideas and inspiring others to think differently. And third and finally, the team should have identified or come to a consensus at some point about the problem. They should be aligned on what is happening. And then just to wrap up, we also will send out our how might we resources that we use, and then also the sources that we use to compile the how might we examples for today. So we're going to jump back to the Q&A. We have a couple minutes. We have time to stick around and answer any questions if anybody has any. And that will be our webinar today.
Shannon, we have a question from Kelly.
Yeah.
So if you split a larger how might we statement into multiple statements, how do you ensure that you maintain coherence between all related statements?
Right. So sometimes the how might we statements might be categorized into themes. I generally tend to tag them and say, okay, this theme is, I don't know, let's say outpatient related, or this theme is inpatient related, or this deals with a specific theme that was found within research. And I try to keep them together. Taylor, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but feel free to.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I would do the same. Themes are a good way to do that.
All right, and it looks like somebody asked about the recording. We will send the recording out. We'll make our slides available as well. And again, the slides will have the resources and sources in the back.
And before we conclude, go ahead.
Say before everyone wraps up, I just want to say thank you to Taylor and Shannon. This has been incredibly helpful. I know I had fun playing along. And if anyone has any questions about video and everything, we'll make sure to get that out and available to you as soon as possible.
Okay.
Great. So I guess on that, we'll say everyone have a great day. Thank you for joining us, and feel free to shoot over those questions later if you have any other. And don't hesitate to reach out to Taylor and Shannon. If you need their contact information, you can absolutely email me at rachel@massmedic.com or check us out on LinkedIn, and we'll make sure to get you connected with the speakers.
Great. Thanks so
Have a
much
great
for
one.
everyone.
Thanks so much for coming.